powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jay Kohn. Firefighters in Southern California racing against time as they battle at least 4 major wildfires burning out of control. Late today, we have word that Montana firefighters and resources will soon be headed to California to help crews battle back against the flames. More than 50 firefighters from Montana, including some from Columbus and Red Lodge, will head to Southern California. Columbus will send 3 firefighters along with this engine. Fire Chief Rich Cowger tells us they'll leave Columbus early tomorrow morning en route to Chino, California. And from northwestern Montana, crews from Evergreen also are packing up tonight to help out in California. Cowger says about 55 firefighters and 16 engines will offer mutual aid.
They'll be in a little different terrain, a little different environment down there, but and fuel types, but the job's the same, you know. And they'll be with seasoned people that are down there and familiar with the circumstances down there. So it's not like they're going to go into it completely blind, but you know, they've trained up for the situation and they know the hazards and the dangers and the stuff to look out for.
Cowger says the crews are already divided up into strike teams. He says some of the Montana firefighters will work together. Others will join forces with crews from other states who are responding to the request for additional help. All combined, the California fires have destroyed tens of thousands of acres and now destroyed nearly 200 structures, and the conditions expected to get even worse before they improve. Danielle Nottingham tonight has the latest from Los Angeles.
Flames and smoke continue to engulf parts of Southern California, hours before the powerful Santa Ana winds picked up.
The wind is expected to kick up in some places to 70 miles an hour. That's hurricane force winds.
This fire just got way bigger. It's now on the freeway.
Those winds helped fan a new wildfire Wednesday near the 405 freeway in Los Angeles. As helicopter crews made water drops on hot spots in the area, firefighters on the ground raced to save multi-million-dollar homes in Bel Air.
I go over here, the whole mountain is on fire.
Thousands of people were forced to evacuate, leaving much of their possessions behind. With multiple wildfires burning here in Southern California, resources have been stretched thin. Firefighters have requested more assistance as they continue to battle the flames.
We have resources coming as far away as Northern California. We made requests to our regional partners through surrounding states and the western part of this country.
The largest fire in the region is burning in Ventura County, where more than 65,000 acres have burned. The air quality has gotten so bad, residents there are wearing masks.
This is it's kind of like nuclear winter, I guess.
Fire officials have warned residents throughout Southern California to be ready to evacuate, with weather conditions expected to get even worse. Danielle Nottingham, CBS News, Los Angeles.
And like Montana, 2017 is also California's worst fire season on record. We're checking in on our weather scene tonight. Well, Bob, we're hearing all about the Santa Ana winds that are fanning these flames. What can you tell us?
Yeah, we thought we'd just kind of give you an idea how that develops and what actually happens. It starts with this big ridge of high pressure, big dome of high pressure over the Great Basin area, and the circulation around the high is clockwise. So eventually that means some of that wind as it comes off the high is going to be coming from the east towards the Los Angeles area. It goes over the high desert and heats up there, goes through the mountain, passes and through the gaps of the mountains. That compresses the air even more and heats it up even more, and eventually it flows offshore. But if you get a fire going, it fans those flames. Meanwhile, on the other side of the high, we call them Chinook winds because that same rotation, clockwise rotation, sends that wind towards Montana from the southwest, comes up over the Beartooth Mountains, comes down the mountains and compresses the air that's already here. That heats it up as well. So the two are very related in a sense. Santa Ana and Chinook winds, all made by the same high pressure cell. Okay.
Very much, Bob. Count Montana Senator Jon Tester among members of the U.S. Senate now urging Minnesota Senator Al Franken to resign. Franken's been hounded by a string of allegations of sexual misconduct, including now new claims today by a former congressional aide who said the Minnesota Democrat forcibly tried to kiss her some 11 years ago. Although Franken denies the accusations, more than 25 Senate Democrats are now pushing for him to resign. In a tweet earlier today, Senator Jon Tester said, quote, "Elected officials must be held to a high standard. Al Franken is no exception. It's time for him to step down." Franken's office says the senator will make an announcement tomorrow, but did not elaborate. In Billings federal court today, attorneys for a Busby man accused of burning a woman alive tried twice to end the trial. 20-year-old DeMarzio Sanchez facing deliberate homicide for the murder of Roy Lynn Rideshorse last year. First, Sanchez's attorneys were unsuccessful in a request for a mistrial. Then later, Judge Susan Waters denied a motion to dismiss the charges on grounds that prosecutors failed to prove their case. Judge Waters says she wants the jury to make that call. Q2's Asia Gore was in the courtroom again today.
Jay, this third day of trial ended with a pair of psychiatrists squaring off about DeMarzio Sanchez's mental capacity. The doctor, called by defense attorneys, described Sanchez as severely impaired, saying he suffers the effects of fetal alcohol syndrome. She also testified that through hours of testing, she determined Sanchez is a follower, not a leader. Defense attorneys used that testimony to further their claims that Sanchez was too incompetent to carry out the heinous assault on Roy Lynn Rideshorse. Prosecutors then called their own doctor, who testified that Sanchez was exaggerating his mental disability by intentionally failing tests. This doctor said Sanchez performed worse on her tests than people with brain injuries or dementia. Prosecutors say Sanchez led his two co-defendants in the assault on Rideshorse and say it was Sanchez who doused the victim in gasoline and set her on fire. Both sides have rested their case, and closing arguments are set to begin tomorrow morning. The case then goes to the jury for deliberations. Jay?
All right, thank you, Asia. Two of the co-defendants of Sanchez in the case, his brother Frank Sanchez and Angelica Whiteman, will both have pleaded guilty for their roles in the murder. Tomorrow, December 7th, is the 76th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Billings radio personality Lonnie Bell was among the first to arrive there following the deadly attack, and he sat down with Q2's Samantha Harrelson to share his story.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, by air, President Roosevelt has just announced.
I had been in the Navy a year and 11 days when they bombed Pearl Harbor on December the 7th.
A Japanese attack upon Pearl Harbor naturally would mean war.
So I went down to the mess hall on the second deck, and they had a big radio in there, you know, and they had the news on it, and they were. The first thing I heard was that the Oklahoma was on fire and the West Virginia was still fighting.
Lonnie Bell, just about 18 at the time, was stationed in the North Atlantic, thinking he was too far away from Hawaii to worry.
Next morning, our executive officer, Commander Nichols, he says, want everybody to go down on the third deck. He says, get your insurance, make sure your insurance is up to date, because we're leaving at noon for Hawaii.
After weeks of travel from the far North Atlantic through the United States and across the Pacific, they arrived, second only to the aircraft carriers.
And it was a sight to see. The Oklahoma was upside down, the battleship Oklahoma, and all the other ships were, but all these battleships are sunk. And the Arizona blew up, and here's all this wreckage, you know. I tell you, when you go there and you see a battleship upside down for the first time, you just can't imagine. It was something to see, believe me. It would make you stop and think a minute, you know.
Hostilities of this kind would naturally mean that the president would ask Congress for a declaration of war.
Lonnie remembers a lot about those times, the people he met, the people he lost, and the unbelievable sadness engulfing the world around him.
When we got to Pearl Harbor, all the women and kids had been sent back to the United States. And it was so sad, and the guys that were there, the survivors, which everybody was that was there, 2 or 3 of those guys was engaged to be married. In fact, this one shipmate, his wife was already there and was going to get married. And that bomb, when the bomb fell, they changed all that, and they took all the women and the kids away. And those were the saddest people I ever saw in my life. I don't think I ever saw anybody any sadder than they were. 16 million people in uniform. And a lot of people sacrificed their lives for the World War II. I always felt that I was extremely lucky. And I always thanked the good Lord that I made it.
Samantha Harrelson, MTN News.
Quite the story. Thank you for sharing that, Lonnie. A special program, by the way, is set up for tomorrow out at the Yellowstone National Cemetery in Laurel. The noon event features a color guard display and an opening prayer. World War II veterans buried at the cemetery will also be recognized. And in observation of Pearl Harbor Day tomorrow, Governor Steve Bullock has ordered flags in the state to fly at half-staff in honor of the American patriots who lost their lives on that fateful day 76 years ago tomorrow. Still to come on tonight's 10 o'clock news, while one local business opens its doors, another says it won't be able to open for the holiday season. The Capitol Christmas tree shining bright outside the nation's capital tonight would take you to the lighting ceremony. And in sports, Grizz coach Travis DeCuire weighs in on the cancellation of tonight's game against UCLA.
You're watching MTN News with Jay Kohn and Janelle Slade. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Green.